I wanted to do a quick breakdown today of probably my favorite ambient piece from the Eastward soundtrack. It's track 48. It's called Legacy. I'll play a little bit of it here. It's really languid, really open, and spacious, and in that sense it really complements a lot of the chiptune oriented material on the soundtrack. Looking at the project here in Logic, it's only three things, kind of. There are some effects that are happening here that are really, I would almost consider like a fourth and even fifth part. But let's break these down. The first piece to just take a look at here is the piano. So let's solo up the piano and listen to it, and then I'm going to break it down even further. So the piano is doing this thing that's kind of midway between a melody and a chord progression. We've got this call and response. The piano makes a statement, it's followed by another statement. But in between each statement, we have a lot of motion. So it feels spacious, but there's actually a lot of material here, and that's a big part of what gives this piece its character. And in order to really kind of hear what's going on with those parts, let's turn all of that off. So now we've just got, let's zero that out by just hitting play quickly. It clears out our buffer. Now let's listen just to the piano. So we've got a Bosendorfer from the Quantum Leap piano library, which I tweaked just a little bit to give it a little bit more weight. But essentially like a very acoustic sounding concert grand. We've got a few things happening though in our effects chain. We've got two insert effects. We have Valhalla Shimmer, which is a long languid reverb. Let's listen to it just with that. What Valhalla Shimmer does really well is long reverbs, but also long reverbs that have a texture in them that makes them a little bit more interesting than just space. So it's using a little bit of feedback, and it shifts the feedback key down by a perfect fourth. So in order to hear that, let's pump the feedback way up. So it's almost clashy when you hear too much of it. But when you hear just a little bit of it, it just gives it enough extra texture to be interesting. The next effect send I have is Permutate, which is one of my favorite kind of multi-effects. And in this case, let's turn it way up so that we can really hear it. It's only going to happen when this green, there we go. This is one of my favorite things to do just in general, which is to put a really subtle effect on that happens at the end of a phrase. So you'll hear it again when this lands here. You could just barely hear it. It just gives it a tiny sense of motion at the end of every phrase so that we have a little bit of chaotic movement. Makes things just a little bit more interesting than if they were static. And the third component, which I'd almost call its own part, is this reverb. That's not really just a reverb. It's a reverb that's going to, sometimes I'll try different effects, but I'll leave them in the chain, just turn them off in case I want to reactivate them. And in this case, we have Supermassive, which is like kind of a cross between a reverb and a delay, a filter, and then another reverb. So we're putting reverb on the reverb, which sort of sounds crazy, but it just gives it part of the sound. And some of that is because I wanted to blur the effect of this delay-like effect. And I'm just putting a little reverb on it, smears it a little bit. So let's hear it with that. And actually, we can turn the output of this off and just listen to the reverb. Again, I'm using reverb to really mean this whole chain. So it's almost like this cloud of sound that ebbs and flows. Big part of that is this filter that's kind of in the middle here. So if I adjust this manually, you get this really rich harmonic sweep. That's too much, of course, and it's more subtle than that. It's moving, although you can't see it moving in the user interface here. It's moving very slowly. I've since taken this and saved it to an effect that I call Legacy, that I occasionally use on other projects. We have a synth doing a very complementary thing to the piano. It's happening in the exact same harmonic rhythm. The synth is an MKS 50, which is a rack version of a Roland Alpha Juno, and I have it plugged in and activated here. It sounds like that with no reverb or effects on it at all. But in this case, I've taken what it's doing and rendered it to audio here so that I don't have to turn the synth on every time I open this project. And also this helps me if, I open this for some reason in 5 or 10 years and I don't have this synth anymore or it's broken, I have it rendered to audio in case I need it. So let's just listen to that. Very similar effects. In this case, it's going to this same send that we're calling the legacy chain, that I'm calling the legacy chain. It's going to another reverb that's 5 seconds. And it's going to permutate, which is giving it these kind of clangy, chaotic effects that are very, very similar to what the piano is doing here, but just less subtle. And we've got a filter here. This filter, though, and if I turn it off, let's solo this up and turn this off. It's pretty subtle, but it's just taking off everything above about 14 kilohertz. So let's put it all back together. The idea is the synth blends with the piano enough that they feel like one thing, with just enough texture and movement in between statements. Until we get to here, and we have one other part that gets added. And all it is a sub bass. It's just meant to add some weight and some depth as the composition starts to develop. So that is Legacy from the Eastward soundtrack. 3 sounds, a lot of space, and a lot of reverb. So thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.